Good morning. The Senate Committee on Governmental Organization will convene in 60 seconds. Good morning and welcome everyone. At this time, the Senate Committee on Governmental Organization will come to order. Appreciate everybody's presence. Today's docket includes 4 file items, one of which is on consent. Committee will proceed as a sub until such time as we establish a quorum. We're hoping to get call at around 10 o'clock. We also will then proceed upon completing the bill agenda to the joint informational hearing. With that file item, adoption of the committee rules. Members, we'll take that up when we have a quorum, sorry. Boy, caffeine is kicking in. All right. We will then proceed as a sub and take file item number 1, which is SB-12 by Senator Gonzalez. Wherever you'd like, Senator. Getting back in the groove.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. And nice to see you, Mr. Chair and members. I'd like to start by accepting the committee's proposed amendments to add a 10-year sunset to the bill and make other technical changes. SB-12 will create the California Immigrant and Refugee Affairs Agency to help meet the needs of our state's large immigrant and refugee population. California is home to over 10 million immigrant communities and who have significantly contributed to the Golden State's thriving economy. In 2018, immigrant-led households in California paid over $80 billion in federal taxes and nearly $40 billion in state and local taxes. Despite their impact on our economy and our workforce, California does not have a dedicated office for immigrant issues and advocacy, meaning there are limited statewide services and support systems for this unique and important population. Testifying in support today, I have Dr. Amada Armenta, Faculty Director at the Latino Politics and Policy Institute at UCLA, and Ray Cano, Chirla member from Orange County, as well as Cynthia Gomez from the Coalition for Human Immigrant Rights, which we know as Chirla, also here for technical questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Please state your name again for the record and please proceed.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Amada Armenta. I'm the Faculty Director of the UCLA Latino Policy and Politics Institute. I'm here to support SB-12, which will promote the full inclusion of over 10 million immigrant residents in California by creating a statewide Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs. California is home to the most immigrants of any state in the nation, which is also why we have the world's 5th largest economy. Immigrants are an important part of our workforce, and they're overrepresented in key sectors that really drive our future. In addition, immigrants make up about 38% of all self-employed immigrant business owners. Despite this, we know that immigrants face unique vulnerabilities. About half of all immigrant entrepreneurs are limited English proficient. They face language barriers. And we also know that immigrants have the hardest time accessing state services and programs to which they and their families are entitled. This matters because California families are immigrant families. About half of all kids in California have at least one immigrant parent, and 1 in every 5 kids in California is part of a mixed status family. So a statewide Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs is really key to ensuring that we uplift those communities that do so much to uplift our state. By creating an Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, particularly in counties and regions that are not served by existing state and by existing state and county and city offices. You know, immigrant communities are increasingly under attack, especially at the federal level, so we have the real opportunity to make sure that immigrants in California can achieve full civic and community and economic inclusion by supporting SB-12. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Ray Cano. I live in Laguna Niguel in Orange County, and I'm a proud member of Chirla. I'm here to strongly urge you to vote yes on SB-12 and support the creation of an Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs. California has the highest immigrant population in the United States. We are essential and integral part of what makes California such a successful and culturally rich state. Yet, despite our contributions, many immigrants and refugees face barriers to accessing resources, legal assistance, and economic opportunities. In my own community of Orange County, I have seen firsthand how many families remain uninformed about the services available to help them. Unlike large cities where immigrant support organizations are more visible, many people in smaller communities struggle to find the guidance and resources they need. I have met with families who are unaware of their rights, do not know where to turn for legal aid, or face difficulties accessing essential services due to language barriers. If this is the reality in my community, imagine the challenge for immigrants in other small towns and rural areas across California. With the opening of Orange County's Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, my community has begun to feel the positive effects of organizations like CHIRLA. Throughout the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, service providers, faith leaders, and community advocates can share resources with the community and work together to address the needs of our neighbors. At a time when federal immigration policies create uncertainty and fear, California must take a firm stance in support of people who have long contributed to economic and social fabric of our state by establishing an Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs. This office would provide vital coordination, outreach, and accessibility, making California a leader in truly supporting the people who help our state thrive. By voting yes on SB-12, you are investing in a stronger, more inclusive California, one that upholds its values of diversity, opportunity, and justice for all. I urge you to stand with immigrants and refugees by supporting this crucial initiative, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll suspend testimony momentarily while we establish a quorum. Consultant, please call the roll.
Padilla?
Present.
Padilla, present. Valladares? Valladares, present. Archuleta? Ashby? Blakespeare? Present. Blakespeare, present. Cervantes? Daly? Here. Daly here. Hurtado? Jones? I'm here. Jones here. Ochoa Bo? Richardson? Present. Richardson, present. Rubio? Smallwood Cuevas? Here. Smallwood Cuevas here. Wahab? Weber Pearson? Here. Weber Pearson here.
Thank you. Are there any primary witnesses in opposition to the bill? Any additional persons wishing to testify in opposition to the bill? Seeing none, we'll bring it to the committee for questions or comments. Senator Weber.
Good morning, Senator. Thank you so much for your presentation of this bill. I do have a couple of questions and a little bit of concerns that hopefully, as the bill, if the bill is to move forward, that we can kind of work and hash out. My first question is the thought that that this needs to be established because in other departments they're not already doing this?
Correct. Absolutely. We want to make sure that we're cross-referencing all the agencies that do have them, but if they don't, we want to make sure that there is a one-stop shop for immigrant and refugee issues and affairs just across the board.
Okay.
Across agencies.
And is there a concern or a thought about if, I'll use health for example, if someone in the health department is specific to the health needs of immigrant and refugees, pulling them out of that department and putting them in this particular department would cause problems in terms of, I believe if you're health, you should be under a health facility and not necessarily outside of the health realm. The same could happen for education. Them actually being off in a silo. You don't have any concerns about that?
No. I mean, we're going to establish the bill calls for a director of refugee and immigrant affairs to be able to just coordinate all the good work that's being done, whether you're in the health department, transportation, et cetera. I mean, there's a multitude of different programs that are being done that support everybody, including, but mostly and primarily immigrants and refugees. So we want to be able to consolidate that work with through the director. But I mean, that work is still going to continue in, with their individual agencies too. It's just being able to have a one-stop shop. A lot of folks don't know publicly that there are immigrant representations or immigrant programs in many of these agencies at all. So I think this would just level up the discussion even further, but I don't know if anyone would like to add to that too.
Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Morning, Chair and members. My name is Cynthia Gomez. I'm the Deputy Director of State Policy for CHIRLA. I just want to add to the comments that the Senator just shared. So the real importance behind this bill is that There is no centralization in terms of the support services that are offered for immigrant and refugee communities. So we know as a state we have done quite a lot to support our immigrant communities, but because there is no sort of central hub, a lot of folks, I can speak personally from Chile, a lot of folks do not realize that these resources are out there, and folks will seek out organizations like Chile, but unfortunately, there is not a Chitla in everyone's backyard. And that's the hope that, with the Office of Immigrant Affairs, that we would be able to cover these regions that don't have access to a trusted nonprofit or a large trusted nonprofit, like the way that, folks have in Los Angeles when it comes to Chitla, and be able to receive the support services and these information from the Office of Immigrant Affairs.
Okay, thank you. So I understand the importance of collecting data or having all information like a one-stop shop, but I guess I was a little confused by the fact that this bill would require every officer and employee who is performing a function at another office, agency, or department that is transferred to the Office of Immigrant and Refugees Affairs to also be transferred to that office. So if I am a healthcare provider in like CDPH, and I specifically focus on issues dealing with immigrant and refugee health, public health, then I am, according to what I'm reading, my job is going to be transferred outside of the realm of public health into this particular office. And I'm not sure if that's the best method of going about it, removing someone from the actual department. Now, I can understand getting information, but removing that particular function, that individual outside of the realm of public health into this particular space, I don't know if that's...
I don't think that's the intention. I think what we're trying to do is ensure that we have the director that oversees all of these immigrant and refugee issues within their respective departments, just as you would, I remember being a city council member, and there were a lot of folks that were working on this same issue, and they would have, they didn't even have interagency meetings to know who was doing what, whether you're Department of Transportation or Department of Health or Department of whatever the case. So just starting there to have someone that sort of oversees all of these departments, and we can clarify the language if it needs further clarification. But I think overall we want to highlight the good work that each of these representatives are doing. Many folks don't know about them, and that's the whole impetus of the bill, on top of the public support for our communities.
Yeah, if we could clarify the language, because when I read it, it's very concerning to me, because you're actually taking individuals out of the expertise of their department, whether it's health or education or whatever, and you're putting them over in this other area away from the greater good. And I think there was discussion about it in the analysis as well, based on the way in which this is written.
Sure.
And then there's another question that I have. When they talk about interagency sharing of information shall be limited to demographics only, like, I know where we're trying to get, but can you explain to me, what does that mean, demographics? What would be considered demographics?
Well, I think obviously where, everything related to who people are, obviously everyone thinks of immigrant communities or refugee communities maybe as being just Latino, but they're not. We know there's immigrant, populations within the Black community, within Middle Eastern community, et cetera. So we think of demographics in that sense, of course, but we're going to ensure that there's adequate privacy protections for that. And I think we've, ensured that we're solidifying that as well to apply to data protection laws here in the state too.
Yeah.
That's a big concern.
Yeah, I think I know what you're trying not to release to other agencies. But I was, when you talk about focusing on demographics only, especially in a bill where you're talking about removing certain individuals from certain departments and putting them under this new agency, I immediately went to, of course, with my health background, the sharing of medical information, right? So during COVID, there was a huge need to know what was actually happening within our immigrant and refugee population. Was the information that was getting out about COVID? Was it reaching that community? Were they vaccinating? Were they keeping themselves and their families safe? If everyone that does this is in this agency now, and this agency isn't sharing that information with like the Department of Public Health and things like that, then that's a problem. And so when we're talking about demographics only, when I think about demographics, I think of like, age, gender, race, ethnicity, that kind of stuff. You may want to think about what else should potentially be shared when you're talking about like interagency ability to work together and ensure that everybody's knowing what each other is doing. You may want to kind of think about maybe expanding that a little bit and restricting the things that you don't want shared, but definitely allowing for other agencies to still have information that they would need to keep everyone safe, including the immigrant and refugee community. So I will be supporting it today, but I do hope that as this continues to move forward, that we're able to kind of look
And those are great comments, and we want to make sure that we're providing as much information that's de-identifying folks, so it's not obviously being shared with the federal government in a way that would keep people unsafe, but also do so in a way that would protect health, of course. And this passed, the language in here passed both judiciary committees in terms of like data protection as well, so we just want to make sure that that's clear too. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Weber. Other questions or comments from members of the committee? Senator Valladares.
Well, thank you. I can definitely appreciate the intent behind this bill and needing to support our immigrant and refugee communities. In 2015, SB-84 was created that created the statewide director of immigrant inclusion, and they were tasked with coordinating services and producing a statewide report to see what was working and what isn't. It was due in 2017. Did that report actually happen? One. Two, was there any information in that report that kind of helped guide this bill? And why not kind of expand that role versus creating a new agency?
Yeah. Well, we wanted to create a new agency because, and I'm not certain on the 2017 report, we'll have to check into that. But again, we wanted to create a new agency because we're in a very precarious time right now. I actually did this before the Trump administration, to be quite honest with you. I've been working on this bill for 3 years. We just know the need. As been mentioned, the data and the stats are very clear. 1 in 4 people living in California have some sort of immigrant story, whether they're the children of immigrants, whether they are immigrants themselves. You have 25% of our population that we should not be ignoring. So I think it's not enough to say that a report is, even if the report provided, recommendations, there's really not been, nothing significant to this effect that has been done. So I think that an agency is the most appropriate at this time. Again, coordinating all of these services, working with the local offices. You've got a local office now in Orange County, one in Los Angeles, one across, many across the state. But these nonprofits that are doing the work now that many of our communities are relying on, but that don't know exactly how to take it a step forward in working with government agencies. So this is why we're here now, and obviously it's going to be a continued discussion and challenge during this time, but I think it's a well-worthy fight, for the occasion.
So just a follow-up really question here, or not question really. So unfortunately I can't support this bill because I do have some concerns, and at a time when we have some serious budget constraints, I'm worried about the cost of the agency. I'm worried that some of this may be duplicative, and would love to see what we can do within the statewide director of immigrant inclusion, if that role exists. What are they doing now? I think Californians have asked us to look at the policies that we are creating through the lens of affordability and saving taxpayer dollars. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get to support, but I appreciate your intent.
Thank you. And I would say, immigrant communities provide over $9 billion in state taxes to our coffers. So I think that this is certainly a well-worthy fight for them. Thank you, though, for your comments.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Smallwood-Clayton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my question, and want to thank you for bringing this bill forward. I think it's important for communities, particularly communities that are so often invisible, to have a place in their government to get information, but also for us to be able to collect data to see where the needs are, to reduce investments and programs that may not be working, to look at programs that are working, to be able to have an opportunity to partner with nonprofits in a way that helps to multiply our efforts. So can you talk a little bit about the ways in which we can sort of go into this very robust government that we have, where we know often acts in silos, where it's very difficult often to get information, even as a legislator, on very particular communities. Can you talk a little bit about how you envision this office helping us to streamline, helping us to understand the ways in which we can be more effective in how we serve this community?
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you for the question, Senator. Absolutely. I mean, I see it at home. I have multitude of organizations back at home that are working on immigrant services, just as something as simple as, providing them information on DMV language access or what have you. Most of the time, the nonprofits are doing this work, but many of the immigrant and refugee communities that they work with don't know exactly who to go to and where to go. They don't even know what I do as a state senator in some cases. They're going to these, frontline organizations. And so this would be hopefully an opportunity for us to be able to provide more assistance, whether that's, funding at some point. I know our state budget is tough right now, but nonetheless, being able to provide these nonprofits with the resources available, also being able to provide, again, just sort of a wider network of immigrant services for the areas that don't have local offices either, or local nonprofits. There's a lot of sort of areas now that we know of, maybe that's in the Central Valley, that lack services for immigrants and refugees, and lack also the additional institutional knowledge of who to go to in state government or local government. So I see it doing a wide variety of things, and this will be an ongoing discussion. Again, we're in a time now where I think the federal government has been sort of taking away and attacking these communities, when in fact, these communities are the most hardworking. Again, 1 in 4 of them are working professionals here in the state, whether they're working in transportation or farms, or they're working in offices or in hotels, what have you. They're working and they're doing the good work. They just don't feel like government is working for them back. So it's going to be an ongoing discussion. It's going to be a lot of resources, a lot of work and insight that we'll all have to do to make this really a successful program.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So going back to a different angle, I have just a little different of an angle from Senator Valladares, but I do want to expand a little bit more on the 2015 bill. There was a budget trailer bill, SB-84. According to my notes, it said it established the Office of Statewide Director of Immigrant Integration to serve as the statewide lead for the planning and coordination of immigrant services and policies. So basically, it's almost similar to what you're trying to do right now. So is this office not working? This is bill not effective? Did it not do its job?
Well, it was a state, it was an existing role, and what we want to do now is make them the director of this new office, is what we're going to do. And from what I understand, too, the report that Senator Valladares was referring to has not been published yet. So there's been a lack of work that's been done, in my opinion, to make this as robust as it needs to be for immigrant and refugee communities. So we want to make it a full office. Again, all state agencies included, and hearing loud and clear on some of the clarifications that need to be done, but we think that it's time, especially now, to be able to have this robust office in our state government.
So should we, and I have not looked into going further on this one, but should we first get the information regarding the SB-84 and its mission and what it's done before we continue on expanding, because the biggest concern that I have, and one of the things that I've seen these past 4 years, is that we try to establish additional government agencies to oversight. So we have all of these different entities, and then we start hearing that there's just too many. There's not a whole coordination. So we try to create an umbrella, and we do that over and over and over again. And it just seems to be very costly. I'm not sure it's as efficient as possible. So I'm just kind of curious as to whether or not we need to assess as a legislature first the role and where this particular the status of this particular bill lies in the state or the statewide director of immigrant services, and follow up on that, whether or not this needs to be revisited or reassessed or canceled and then create something different. I'm just kind of curious that we're being redundant in our efforts and not as efficient. But I think before we move forward, I really think that we need to follow up on the report of this particular effort and see whether or not there was what we need to do with it. I'm not sure that moving forward with an additional cohort rather than following up on this report. It seems like it's been 10 years, but we don't have anything assessed yet.
No, I hear you loud and clear on that, and thank you for the comments as well. You know, I think, again, I can't reiterate enough what time we're in now and the need. And the report will be great. It's going to be a static report, whatever it comes out with, right? It hasn't been published yet, even in this time. So clearly there's no urgency to do this, but I think the urgency is now. But what the director is required to do under this bill, and I'm just going to read this, it's number 6, in the analysis, it requires to develop a mission statement, strategic plan, a matrix of success for the office, identify effective practices and successful modes of delivering services to immigrant and refugee communities. Evaluations are needed for the improvements in the implementation and coordination of public policies relating to immigrant and refugee communities. How many bills do we do every year? And especially now, I can't even imagine how many bills are going to be on immigrant and refugee communities. And then reporting back to the legislature, which I think is important on a biannual basis on successes and challenges as it relates to this community. So it's a very structured role, which I don't believe we've had before, but will be part of this greater agency and office to be able to continue to coordinate the policies, the agencies, any guidelines that have been put out by the Attorney General that were just put out just recently that no one knows what the heck they do. And I'll invite our, folks back up here if they'd like to add to this. They're the ones on the ground. So regardless of what the report says, they're the ones that actually are stressing the need for this as well.
Thank you, Senator. Again, state your name for the record. Thank you.
Again, Cynthia Gomez, Deputy Director of State Policy with CHITLA. And one thing that I want to add to this is, we're talking about a role that at this point is almost like 10 years old. We know that things have rapidly changed, especially given the context of COVID and how drastically that had changed the dynamic. We're now, in a federal administration that has also very drastically changed this dynamic. We will do our due diligence and follow up on this report, but I think even if we were to be able to get this report, there's a solid chance that whatever information is provided in it has already been outdated, just given the context of where we are now and everything that's happened between this 10-year period. And I think it further emphasizes the need for an Office of Immigrant Affairs, a centralized agency that has accountability, right? When we know that there is an agency that is present, who has a role to do, we're able to also hold that agency accountable. So I think it further emphasizes the need to have an agency be present that provides this constant streamlining report to the legislature.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So just one final comment, if I may, Mr. Chair. I'm going to lay off the bill. I supported the bill in 2021, but I'm going to lay off the bill this time just because I really do want to see whether or not where we are. I want to investigate more on SB-84 for 2015 to see what the department is doing, because if it's not doing its job, if it's outdated already, 10 years, if it's not doing its job, then the legislature needs to come back and look at that and say, hey, this is maybe something that we need to cancel and reassess and perhaps create a new agency. But I'm a little reluctant, especially, consider, and I know the need, I absolutely understand the need, but I'm kind of reluctant in creating more agencies or more offices without evaluating what we currently have in order to move forward on it and spending additional funding on that. So I'm going to lay off. I'm going to do a little more research on my end on this, and I think it behooves the legislature to actually, and I think this is a great point to make in committee, is that our role as legislators is oversight over state agencies, state departments, directors and so forth, and to see if they're actually doing their job or not, if it's effective and not, and if it's not, then reassess and saying, okay, let's just let go of this one and start new. And I see that a lot also in education. So I'm gonna lay off on this one. I'm gonna do a little more homework, and it behooves all of us to actually continue to do our homework on this one as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ochoa. Any other questions or comments from members of the committee? Seeing none, Senator Gonzalez, would you like to close?
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for the comments. I really do take the feedback with heart, and I really will fight for these communities. As you know, this is our community. California is, we are the daughters and sons of immigrants, and many of us need to put forward a concerted effort to support them, even in this really divisive time, regardless of what party affiliation you are. So with that, I say thank you and respectfully ask for an aye vote, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator, and I know this has been a long journey. Appreciate your leadership in this regard. On this item, the recommendation the chair support with amends. I'll entertain a motion.
Move it.
I'm sorry? Oh, yes, sorry. See, not enough caffeine. We'll go back to some housekeeping, the adoption of the rules of the committee. Members have been supplied with a copy of the rules for 25-26 legislative session. Questions or comments on the draft rules? If not, under the rules, without objection, those are adopted. Now we'll move to disposition of this bill. I'll entertain a motion. Senator Archuleta.
Move the bill, please.
Thank you. The motion is due pass as amended to judiciary. Assistant, please call the roll.
Padilla.
Aye.
Padilla, aye. Valladares. Archuleta.
Aye.
Archuleta, aye. Ashby. Blakespear. Blakespear, aye. Cervantes. Cervantes, aye. Daly. No. Daly, no. Hurtado. Hurtado, aye. Jones. Ochoa, Woe. Richardson. Aye. Richardson, aye. Rubio. Aye. Rubio, aye. Smallwood Cuevas. Aye. Smallwood Cuevas, aye. Wahab. Weber Pearson.
I have 8.
Weber Pearson, aye.
Ayes are 8, noes are 1. That bill is out. We'll move to file item number 2, which is the consent